On today's episode of Out Loud with me, your host Erin Pash, we're going to talk about all things pets. We're talking like cats and dogs here, okay? We're going to have Dr. Rachel Covey, she's a Minneapolis-based vet, here in the studio to talk about all things when it comes to how we care for our pets and our animals, all the way to how COVID has impacted veterinary care. We're going to share some incredible products, especially one that's my favorite, from a young 15-year-old entrepreneur who just wants healthy food for her animals. And then we're going to have a puppy party. A local rescue here does these puppy parties, and they're going to bring 6 puppies into our studio that we're going to get a chance to play with and talk about all things related to healthcare and wellness for our animals. Let's do it. So today on Millennial, Zoe and I have some extra special guests. Today is all about pets and all about doggies right now. These little guys are here to visit with us from a puppy party from Secondhand Hounds Rescue, which is here in Minnesota. And these little guys are Shih Tzu mixes, and they'll be available for adoption in just a couple of weeks. I don't know which one I have, but I think this is Sparkles, and that might be Unicorn. The foster mom's daughter named these guys. I know there's one that's Prince and Princess and all that good stuff. But today we're talking on Millennial a little bit about why dogs and animals are so good for your mental health. Clearly, and clearly Zoe is a perfect example right now of why they're so good for your mental health. I think it's one of those things we talk about in our field where it's like, you know, people talk about emotional support animals and all that kind of stuff, but you know, beyond the cuteness and beyond the fluffiness and beyond the fun, I think it's also important to talk about them as companions.
Oh yeah, I mean, we just got a puppy in March, and I feel like it has taught us responsibility. It has been a lot of work, but I don't think we've ever felt a love this strong in our, like, not even for my fiance. It's puppy and then him. Just, yeah. I've never felt love
I'm
that
not going to rank my cats and dogs and children because of trauma to any of them, but I will say that they are very special to me, and I couldn't imagine a life without pets. And I think, you know, we talked too about like depression, right? And how sometimes people have a hard time getting out of bed in the morning, but when we have a companion and something that we love so much, it can be that catalyst to help us feel better and get out of bed in the morning. I know a couple of kids who have some mental health stuff going on pretty severely, and they have service animals that really help calm them and keep them from being too anxious or from having panic attacks in public and all that kind of good stuff. So really, you know, people talk about animals and us just not deserving them, and oh my gosh, they're just rolling on top of each other and they're so cute.
I'm not helpful in this segment. I can't stop staring at them.
But let's talk about it a little bit. Like back, you know, I'm a millennial, and I would say that even really my whole life it's been try and rescue animals, right? And do what you can, you know, like there's that whole adopt, don't shop. And I also like, I've had like a designer breed dog. My dogs before the rescue pups I have now, he was a Boston Terrier from a family breeder who was lovely. But how do you think people mostly go about it? Would you say it's like 50-50? Would you say?
I feel like there's a push more for adopt, don't shop. And I will say that I think over COVID, honestly, people have started to do it hopefully a little more ethically. We bought our puppy from like a family hobby farm, so they weren't producing a lot of litters, and we knew the people pretty well. And so I think it depends. I will say the doodles are kind of taking over the world, and there's a lot of doodle slander. We have a part doodle, and I love him more than anything, but there's definitely doodle slander. But you just have to do your research, and you have to be responsible about where you're getting them from.
And I also think, you know, like I think nostalgia plays into people. Nostalgia plays into people, you know, like I grew up with standard poodles. Yeah. And my parents love them, and they love the breed, and they love that it's hypoallergenic. And so when they were looking for a new dog, they couldn't find one, you know, through a rescue. And so it kind of all depends on timing and all of that. Like I said, the 2 dogs I have right now are from rescues. And, you know, I will say that my experience has been a little bit different. I definitely, like, I have one rescue pup who was like the easiest dog I've ever had. And I have one who, because of his circumstances, needed a lot more support, had a lot more more anxiety.
Yeah.
And it just, so really it's kind of like if you're breastfed or bottle fed, it doesn't matter where you get your animal. They all need love, and they all have their quirks and things about them. Oh my gosh, this one's gonna eat me, and that is so cute. You know what we should talk about?
Cute aggression?
Cute aggression.
Oh my
That is a real
God.
thing, and I actually read a little bit of science about it. Cute aggression is this idea that we get like aggressive over something that's so cute, and what I learned is that we can hit like a max level of a certain feeling before it needs to grab from a different feeling. Right? So cute aggression in some people is this idea that when something is so cute, they maybe grab from this other pool or this other emotion, which could be aggression, it could be sadness. You see a lot of people who see stuff that's so cute and they just cry. So we grab from other things, and Zoe and I both suffer from cute aggression where we just want to like squeeze their faces in like the most scrumptious and lovely way. We will never harm an animal ever.
Oh,
but
careful,
it is,
careful.
oh, yeah.
Do you
So
see
that's
this
cute
face?
aggression.
Do you see this face? Oh my God.
Cute
my
aggression.
God.
How can you not want to adopt this little baby?
Yeah.
What if
so
I go
cute.
home with a puppy?
I mean,
Jameson just got neutered on Friday, so a puppy with a cone and a brand new puppy doesn't sound like a great mix, but like
people have twins all the time. They manage it. So we're so grateful to Secondhand Hounds for bringing these little guys in. I'm gonna crawl into that as soon as we're done with this segment, so they can lay all over me, because that's my literal dream.
literally.
And if you guys are looking for a cute little Shih Tzu mix, check their website, which is at the bottom of the screen, and they'll be up for adoption in just a couple weeks.
Oh.
I love you.
Dear Erin, how do I tell another parent that my kid just doesn't want to play with hers anymore? They used to be friends, but her kid was very different than mine, and my kid has told me that they don't want to hang out with the other kid anymore. She keeps asking about playdates, and besides saying we're busy, I haven't had the heart to tell her.
Oh, that's so hard. I've actually experienced this. Kids grow and change, and their interests and likeness grow and change. I mean, if you really think about what's happening when a child is growing, like going from a baby to a kid to a teenager to an adult, like their cells are rapidly regenerating, which means they're becoming exposed and literally a new version of themselves by way of their cells every day. Obviously, this can get tricky, especially because as parents, we identify with who our kids are at different stages in life. If they're playing a certain sport, we might be a hockey mom. If they're not playing, if they might be a part of a science club, we're like, yeah, go science, right? So I think the best thing that somebody could do is just be honest, right? I don't think it needs to be about the other kid, otherwise that can create contention, and make it about your own kid. I would say tell that other parent, my kid's into different things right now and doesn't feel like they have as much in common with your kid, so I think we should just pause on play dates for now. And you can just kind of cough it up to being like, kids just do the darndest things, right? To really make it feel like it's not a personal attack against somebody else's kid. And then they know. Like, I think the worst part is not saying anything, and then you just push it off, and then maybe those kids become friends in the future.
Yeah.
And then it feels like there's this weird tension between the parents. So I think just being honest, making it about how kids grow and change and just want different things sometimes is the best way to go about it.
Okay. So our last one for Dear Erin today. I get very upset over the news. At various times in my life, I have hyperfixated myself into hopelessness over the state of the world. I feel best when I avoid the news altogether, but understand it takes immense privilege to be able to do this. How do I protect my mental health while not burying myself under a rock?
Yeah, that's tricky. And
so
what
hard.
but what I hear in the question is balance,
Yeah.
right? Like it's this, I need to be two extremes. I can tell you that I used to watch the news pretty much all the time because I had cable TV. And then I had to cut the cord, and when I moved and all this other kind of stuff, and I don't have exposure to any like classic, Channel 5 or whatever news, and it's been really peaceful for me. What I do love about news from social media is that I can choose what I want to see, right? I can't choose if people post stories and all that kind of stuff, but there's, like news tabs, right? I'm not on Twitter, I'm not on all these things, but I can go on my social media, I can choose to click the news tab and scroll through. If I want more depth because it's a social media story and maybe not from the most reputable source, I can then go Google it and I can find more information that's important to me. I think understanding that we should be informed is important, but that's not more important than any person's mental health.
Yeah.
I always talk about you can't pour from an empty cup, right? And so if your cup is being depleted because of your anxiety or distress around the news, then you're really not doing yourself or anyone any favors for how you could maybe help or make an impact or all those types of things. So for me, it's about balance. And I want to let this person know too that this is super common. I would say that in like general conversations where you're just gathering, kind of even just with strangers or at work events or whatever that is, this is something that's brought up like almost consistently in every conversation. So just know that you're not alone, like trying to gauge and understand. I mean, you know, for me, I grew up with information as power. And so it was really, really hard for me to detach from this information isn't helping me. This information is actually harming me. And having to kind of detach from that thought process. And I think a lot of other people feel the same. So finding a balance and figuring out the way that you want your algorithm to work for you. Mine certainly has started working for me. I mostly get, you know, Instagram tells me what to wear now. It doesn't tell me all the crazy things happening in the world, but I do seek it out when I want to be informed, and I choose to keep hard stuff or things like that at a minimum. So you can pick and choose who you follow to know when you really want to be informed on an issue that feels really important to you, and when you want to go seek the news to decide that you want to be informed on topics that maybe are outside of your normal passions.
Totally. Well, as always, if you have questions to submit, please submit to the email below. Thanks.
So today on Erin It Out, we have Dr. Rachel Covey here. She has been a veterinarian for the last 12 and a half years, and we are going to start talking about all things related to being a vet, owning animals, the things she might see, what kind of things happen in the vet industry that maybe we don't know about it. So without further ado, welcome Dr. Covey.
Thank you, Erin.
Yeah, so I literally don't even know where to start because I have so many questions. I feel like there has been so much in the news over the last couple of years, especially with COVID, about both pets and about just the way vets are having to interact with the owners of pets and just all that kind of stuff. So if it's okay with you, I want to start with just the profession. I think what a lot of our viewers like is to better understand some of the mental health impacts of the profession. So tell me a little bit about, you know, what a typical day is like for you when you go to your vet clinic.
Sure. So either I have appointments or surgery or a combination of those. So I'll come in, I'll look at my messages, and then see what my day looks like. And that could be an appointment every half hour plus a dropped off pet or two, or it could be some dental cleanings and some spays and neuters and that sort of thing.
What do you prefer to do?
I like the variety.
So you would prefer to have a day that is a little bit mix of appointments, a little mix of surgeries, all that kind of stuff. You know, it's so hard because I guess that's not true. Like, I feel like human doctors, people are going in when there's stuff wrong or they need help with something. I don't feel like there's a ton of people who go to the vet unless it's usually like more catastrophic, other than routine maintenance like teeth cleaning and stuff like that, right?
Oh, it's a combination. I'd say it's probably 50% wellness, so new puppies or just general checkups where we're updating preventive care, because for dogs we're doing heartworm tests, vaccines, that sort of thing, cats exams, lab work, that sort of thing. So a good day for me is a balance of the preventive care where I'm seeing hopefully someone I've built a relationship with over several years, and I'm just seeing their pet, making sure they're healthy, making sure we're catching anything that's catchable so we can intervene before it gets worse. And then you do have very sick pets, but oftentimes the owner is worried and it ends up not being a big deal, which is good, like the wood tick that's actually a nipple.
Oh, I bet I was that person. I actually, when I first had my own dog instead of a family dog when I was a young adult, I found my dog's belly button. And I was 100% sure he was dying. This had to be Lyme's disease, because it's just this funny little circle. That is so funny. Yeah, I mean, so I have so many questions. And so I want to talk a little bit about like all the different kinds of pets you've seen. And you are like a household, like what do you even call it? It's like not farm animals, it's not exotic animals, domestic.
I'd say I'm a small animal general practitioner.
Okay.
Limited to dogs and cats. I have worked with non-traditional pets, but I like focusing on just 2 species and doing it really well. I feel like if you're doing non-traditional pets, you need different medications in your pharmacy, different equipment, different training for your team. And the other thing that was hard for me is, unfortunately, non-traditional pets often come in like way sicker, and so you have a lower success rate than dogs and cats. Because
Non-traditional pets like snakes and rats and
Yep.
hamsters and
anything you might keep in your house that's not a dog or a cat. Birds, reptiles, small mammals, amphibians.
Would you say that most like vets, like family vets, just do see cats and dogs?
I would say the majority do. And then there's some that do a little bit of non-traditional, and then there are vets that do exclusively exotics or non-traditional.
Okay, interesting. So one of the things, so I'm a pet owner. I have like 1 million cats. I've got dogs. I've had them for years. Some of my dogs have come from breeders. Some have been rescues. Same thing with cats. Like one of them we just found in a barn, and just he decided he was ours that day.
That's what cats do sometimes.
Cats do that sometimes.
They find you.
I know.
They pick you.
They do. They really do, which is so fun. So I've been to the vet a lot, and we have a great relationship with our vet, but it's a bigger vet clinic where it's, there's probably 8 vets who are there. And I've always wondered, like over the years, these vets can sometimes remember maybe us as people, but do you guys really remember like the animals? Like when when somebody comes back after, if you only see the dog once a year, do you remember them, or are you just,
Usually I do. I may not remember it on paper, but once I look at the animal, and I try to write really good notes about what the animal did or didn't like, so that next time I can do better handling them and everything. But yeah, and there's certainly other patients I remember more, either because they were sick a lot and I saw a lot of them, or they just had a really fun personality, or they were really not happy to see me and it made me work extra hard.
Sure. Like it's that whole what fires together wires together. If they were really memorable or had made you have some sort of feeling, you remember them. One of our cats almost died. He had worms. They couldn't figure out what it was, and he literally almost died. Went to the emergency vet, all that kind of stuff. Every time we bring that cat to the vet, which is annually now, they're like, "Oh, I remember when we saved Padawan's life." I'm like, "I know, thank you." He was like a $30 cat that turned into like a $6,000 cat.
Yep.
So, which is something that I think people, I think there's a couple kinds of people who own pets. There's people who are like, "Oh, this is my baby." Right? And I will do anything for this animal and all that kind of stuff. And I'm sure you see those people. And then there's the people who are like, they love their animal, but they're not going to give them the surgery and do all that kind of stuff. So, and I think that's hard for a lot of people on the kind of the varying ends of the spectrum. I'm one of those people, I'll do anything for my pets. If I think there's anything wrong, I do not hesitate. I call, I make an appointment. I would be the person who'd be like, "Oh, it's their nipple, not a tick," right? Like that's me. Tell me a little bit about, from your perspective, how you, I have to make an assumption, and call me out if I'm wrong, that you love animals too.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, right? Like I couldn't imagine you not. And so tell me a little bit about what it's like to work with those owners, pet owners, who maybe are just like less invested. Or like when they come in and they say, you tell them my dog needs a knee surgery and it's gonna be $3,000, and they're like, "Put him down." Like, how does that go for you? Or
Well, I would say if a dog needs a knee surgery and they're not going to do it, there's alternatives that might be less ideal. So there's always the Cadillac plan and then the Toyota Camry plan. And I mean, there's some situations where if you really don't do the surgery I recommend, well, then maybe either relinquishment or euthanasia is appropriate. But I try to think about the human-animal bond, and I'm there to support what that is. And my favorite are the people that are as enthusiastic about their pets as I am. And there are people where that relationship is different, where it's not their furry child. It is a pet, it's an animal. They'll take care of it, but they're not prepared to maybe invest the time and money into doing what I would do for my pet. So I just have to help people to the extent they let me help them, and I can't worry beyond that.
Yeah.
So that's how I cope with it, because it used to bother me more, like, why aren't you updating your cat's rabies? Like, seriously.
Yeah.
But
yeah, but I think that's fair. I want to know about like how a vet feels, because I get upset. I'm going to be honest. Like sometimes I get more sad about pets. Like I could watch every sad movie where 1 million people die, and I watch one movie where a dog dies, and I am like bawling. Like there's the way that whether it's the memory for me or whatever that looks like. And I think people would be curious to know how you guys kind of manage that varying level of care. And obviously, like the elephant in the room is having to put pets down and navigating that. So I'd love for you to tell me a little bit about like what that whole experience is like and how vets feel. And
with end of life specifically?
Yeah, or just giving bad news and just all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, well, I'm not going to say it's easy. It's hard. And I think for some vets, they get caught up in that, and it's hard. And you either learn to cope with it or it eats you alive. And so I've found that I have to compartmentalize sometimes, because I might be in one room where a patient is at end of life. Maybe the owners aren't ready. Maybe it's a young patient with a condition that's going to take them way earlier than the pet owners were hoping for. And I have to be present with them there and help guide them through the decisions and steps for that. And then the next room is a new puppy or kitten, and I have to be excited for them and leave that behind.
Do you have to do that like quick of a switch? Like,
oh yeah, I might walk out of a euthanasia and go into a new puppy or kitten, because we don't have the luxury of picking, okay, here's our sad day or our sad times and here's our happy times. You have to just like move on to the next room, and when you step into that exam room, I just tell myself, right now the most important pet is the one right in front of me.
Yeah. That's got to be hard. Like, have you had days where it just feels like it's one euthanasia after the next and
Thankfully,
stuff like that?
no. I think the most I've had to do in one day is 3. So thankfully, no.
That's still a lot.
Yeah.
And then you're dealing with the grieving owners. Like, how do pet owners, like you can talk about the majority or one-offs or whatever, but how do they respond? Like, I know how I have felt. I would say that's probably the hardest thing I've had to do as an adult. And I'm talking as somebody who has had children, who have had medical issues. I am a divorced adult. Like, I've run a business, which really is probably one of the most complicated, hard things I've done. But easily the hardest, and when I look back at some of the hardest days in my life, it is when, like, I had to put my first dog down, Tucker. We found out he had cancer, and it was just like my first little love. And I remember what that felt like for me, but I couldn't imagine, what that feels like for a vet, and having to deal with people like us. Like, what is that experience? Like, I'm the hysterical one.
Sure.
I'm the one, like, when we had to put Tucker down, I'm sitting in the waiting room with my 2-year-old and my infant, and I sent my husband at the time in, and as soon as he walked out, I'm like hysterical, like screaming at the top of my lungs, that person, which I'm sure you know. And then I know other people are just like calm or maybe even angry. Like, how do you guys, well, what's the training for that? Because you're not a therapist.
Very little. Yeah. I often will say that maybe a psychology course should be a prerequisite for vet school. It's not, but you think
Well, you did say compartmentalize, and
yes.
that's like a thing we do. So
yes.
I can tell you've done your research, but yeah, for sure.
I mean, when I see someone grieving, there's a little bit that's sad. I will say I don't generally cry unless a big tough man is bawling like a baby. Then that gets me, because that's like the ultimate vulnerability, and it is an honor to share space with that time in people's life where they're vulnerable and losing something.
I think that's super important for people to hear. I don't think people think about it, right? When your pet dies, like, you don't sit there and think about the vet staff or any of that. I do know I've had friends who are vet techs and stuff like that, and I do know that they'll be like, oh, somebody who, lost their pet a couple months ago brought us treats to say thank you. So like after some of that initial shock and awe is over, they'll come back and just be so grateful, or maybe they get a new puppy and then they come in and they, do all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I don't. I think there was a news article that came out not that long ago that said that veterinarians have the 4th highest rate of suicide completion, taking their own life. And I think that threw me it shocked me a little bit, because I'm like, I don't think about my vet all the time. I just don't. It's not like a therapist or like somebody I see every week. If things are going good in my life, I see the vet once a year for each of my pets, right? And so I don't think about it, but I really did sit and think for a minute, like, think about how hard that moment was for me to put my pet down. I know it's not their pet, but it's that human emotion piece of like, there's got to be a part of you, like, if, what kind of pets do you have?
I have 2 cats and a dog and 2 little girls who are 4 and 6. So, and I just lost my cat, who is 18 years old, in June. So his name was Lance, and I adopted him right before vet school.
Aww.
And he was a very sweet cat. He liked anybody. He was easygoing. He
Social
put up
cat.
with my kids. Yes, if we had people over, he would mingle. Some cats go and hide under the bed, but he would be there wanting to know everyone. So just a sweet, sweet cat. And
What did he look like?
He was a big white fluffy cat.
A big white fluff, like long
Yes,
hair, domestic
yes,
short hair, or
yes.
domestic long hair, whatever.
With little buff marks on his ears. And
Cute.
I don't know anyone that didn't like him who met him. And
Aw.
he just reached the point in his life where he wasn't himself. There wasn't quality of life, and he could have kept going for a while, but I knew I didn't want to see him live through those last steps, so I chose to have him euthanized with an in-home veterinarian. My kids were there, and it wasn't just losing Lance, it was ending a chapter in my life, because he was the constant through the difficulties of veterinary school. First long-term relationship breakup, marriage, kids,
Babies,
ownership,
yeah.
all that. He was there, and he was there for me, and he was gone. And so every time I see someone who has their Lance, like, it kind of reopens that wound a little bit. So that is hard, but it's also beautiful knowing other people get to have Lances in their life.
It is, and I say that every single time I lose a pet, is like, it's so much better to love and have love and loss than to not have them at all. But in that moment, man, it does feel like, damn it, why do I love these stupid things so much? Like, you just hate it, right?
Yep.
Like, it's totally that denial and anger. There's not really like stages of grief, but there are certainly some pretty intense feelings that are sometimes experienced in a universal way, right? And we talk about some of the denial and the anger, the bargaining, or all that kind of stuff. I have mostly euthanized my pets, but I actually lost, so I waited 30 years to get my first cat. Everyone told me cats are hard work. I grew up with dogs. My parents lied and told me they were allergic to cats. They always had poodles and hypoallergenic, and to this day I'm like, you come over to my house, you have no problem. There's 4 cats at my house. But I finally found this rescue. I wanted a Siamese cat, and I found a rescue Siamese cat that had a heart condition. And they had said that it would probably be fine. I mean, the rescue will spend all the time, all the money, taking him to the vet. They found out he had, I think, an aortic stenosis, but didn't really share how fatal that disease was. I think they thought he'd live kind of a normal life and just need more medical care. And it was super duper hard. He was the first cat I ever got, and I got a call from a babysitter who was at the house at the time, and he passed away on his own. Like, my kid found him on the floor.
That's
it was
so
this
hard.
huge traumatic thing. And so my question for you is, because I don't know what's easier, right? And you think about people, you think about pets and just death and all that kind of stuff. When people die like peacefully in their sleep, you're kind of like we have this gratitude for that, like, oh, that was just their time, or all that kind of stuff. But that doesn't happen for people. We don't get to just take them to a vet or to the doctor. I mean, I know it's a huge controversial issue.
Yeah.
So I just, it's, how often do you see, I guess, the difference of pets that just die, or how many owners just decide to make the choice to euthanize versus decide to let them?
I would say that probably 95% choose to euthanize versus losing them either to just spontaneous death, or I've had clients that refuse euthanasia, but that's pretty rare.
Do you think it's because people, like, it's an industry norm, or people are educated towards euthanasia, or because of the actual things? Like, when I had it, my last dog that I had to put down, he was 13 and was incontinent and blind and couldn't couldn't do any of the things, and we tried, right? Like, tried, got him diapers, did all this stuff, and then it was finally, the vet was like, Erin, like, you got to do this. Do you think it's because those honest conversations are happening?
I think so. I mean, I explain to them, when you're doing this, one, you have the opportunity to prepare for that last day. So make a bucket list, feed your favorite foods, take some photos, do everything you possibly can that you enjoy with your pet, and then you're kind of prepared for that letting go. Not that you're ever going to be ready, but you have like the autonomy to plan your goodbye, versus if you're not ready, or it happens suddenly, or you can't bring yourself to do it, and it's just terrible watching a pet suffer and die slowly, because cats are really good at dying slowly.
Cats are.
Yeah.
So now that I know you have cats, what kind of dog do you have?
A beagle.
A beagle, okay. So I have to know, are you cat or dog?
Cat.
You are?
Yes.
I love my dogs, and I've had dogs my whole life, but I think I'm cat too.
Yes. Yes.
Sorry, that's two cat lovers over here. I love dogs too, though. So it's all good. And just, shout out, you own your own vet clinic in Minneapolis, here in Minnesota. It's Vet Partners, right?
That's right, yep.
Very cool. I just love, I love meeting entrepreneurs who really are passionate about what they do, which it's clear that you are. And I'm grateful that you took the time to share a little bit about. I think people will be really excited or surprised even to just learn some of these things they just didn't know. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Erin.
You're welcome.
My pleasure.
Today on Erin's Take, we have special guest, Dr. Rachel Covey is back with us again today. Zoe is in the puppy pen playing with all the puppies, and they are just being so adorable and cute. But we have some really awesome products here to talk about. The first product I want to talk about is actually created by a girl named Ava out of Illinois. She wanted to create puppy treats that were safe and organic and cook them out of her own kitchen. So she started by creating Ava's Pet Palace. These are some treats that actually they sent to us a few weeks ago, and I was able to feed my dogs, and they're absolutely amazing. They smell like salmon, which is to be expected, but the dogs absolutely love them. So we love to support small businesses, including Ava's Pet Palace. And like I said, she's a 15-year-old girl out of Illinois, kind of doing her thing, loving on her dogs, making sure that they have healthy treats and snacks. The next product that we have here is something that we call pup wax. And so Dr. Covey, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about it. It's not quite the cold season here in Minnesota. It's about to be. But there's a lot of talk about making sure we're protecting our dog's paws. Like that is, like paw health is super important. So what would we, when and how and where would we want to use something like pup wax?
I would recommend it if your puppy's going to be out playing on ice, or especially if we're walking on sidewalks that have been treated with salt, just to avoid irritation. Since our dogs live inside with us, their paws are not probably used to running around outside and are going to be more sensitive.
Yeah, and this says that it's like non-toxic and it creates a barrier.
Exactly.
So like when I'm walking my dogs in the winter, so my dog, I know people sometimes put booties on their dogs. My dog's freaked out by it, all like nail cutting, anything with feet. This would be something I could put on that would kind of replace that,
Exactly.
stop it from salt or ice or all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, booties are no-go for some dogs, so this sounds like it'd be way easier.
Yes, I think it would be way easier. And this is made in New York. It's all natural. It soothes, heals, and moisturizes pet paws, and it's super important, especially for you cold climate dog owners, to make sure that you have something. And it looks like there's a wax. It's kind of like you'd expect it to be, a little bit like a petroleum jelly, but not maybe as thick. It's vegan, which is super cool. Premium paw protection. So there's also like, this is the actual wax. Ooh, I like this one better. Yeah, it feels like it would do a better job with the barrier.
Yeah.
Doesn't it? Cool.
Yeah.
So these are the products that we're promoting today on Erin's Take. Pup wax and Ava's Treats and Zoe with a bunch of puppies. What could go wrong?
The best day of my life.
Perfect.
Ow!
No, it's penguin fin. She came with her arm on my shoulder and she was like, Today on Daily Word Count, obviously Zoe and I are laying here in a puddle of puppies. It's been an awesome show today. Dr. Rachel Covey told us so much about veterinary care and what vets experience, and things that really maybe we wouldn't have thought about as pet owners. They really do care a ton about the furry little creatures that live with us and our family members. We got to review some great products. I'm so proud of Ava in Illinois for creating really awesome products that the dogs just absolutely love. And I can't wait for our next Airing It Out. It's going to be interviewing a 911 dispatcher. No puppies, but just as much fun. And I can't wait to see you next time. It's eating my hair.